Memorial Stadium. And we're going to march down 4th Avenue. And we're going to fill 4th Avenue. We are going to fill 4th Avenue from sidewalk to...
All right! There's 2 more weeks! Are we ready? Yeah! Are we really ready for the WTO? Yeah! All right, 2 more weeks. We got, this is a meeting. It's not really about the WTO. It's not really about the World Trade Organization. Like a lot of them, who here, as a matter of fact, let me ask this question. Who in this room right now was at the first meeting back in January? Remember when the announcement was made back in January that the WTO was coming to Seattle, Washington? Right? I remember I was back in D.C. I said, I got to get out there right away, find out, you know, if there isn't any grassroots that can't be engaged and mobilized to oppose corporate global capitalism. And you know what I have to say that now, hi Mike McCormick, everybody right here. Hey, Mike. That I think that they've really started to regret the decision. You know, 2 weeks to go, and it seems to me there's a lot of anxiety about this mobilization against corporate globalization. This is not a meeting, however, tonight about the World Trade Organization and about its effects on environmental and health issues or on labor rights or even the fundamental questions of democracy and sovereignty and federalism. It's not really about that. This is 2 weeks out. This is a meeting about the work that we got to do. These final 2 weeks, this is what we call a GOTP rally. Get out the protest, because there's only 2 more weeks. So, we got to get organized. All right? So, I want to give a little history of this mobilization. All right? The announcement was made, like I said, back in January, and I came out working with the Washington Fair Trade Campaign, local labor unions, environmental activists, a lot of familiar faces in this room. And every single month since January, there's been meetings about the WTO, and we've been working on a substantive critique of the WTO model. And we were at the Labor Temple for a bunch of months, and then we got too big, and we moved here to Kane Hall at the end of the summer. And every month, we've been bringing together activists and scholars to talk about the WTO, but again, this meeting isn't about the WTO at a substantive level. It's about what we need to do in the final 2 weeks to get ready for the political and corporate elites and the international media that's coming to Seattle in, what did I say, 2 weeks? Yeah. Right. We're going to hear from different leaders and activists in different groups about the aspects of the mobilization that's going on here in Seattle as part of this program, so that you all know what each other is doing. So we'll know what all the different constituencies and communities have done and are doing right now to help welcome those elites to Seattle. And you're going to hear a lot of stuff that's exciting that you'll probably want to plug into. What I want to do is, first of all, encourage you to be a part of this, to take off as much of that week from school or from work, the week that begins Monday the 29th, goes through Friday, December the 3rd, to participate in what is going to be an historic confrontation between civil society and corporate rule. I want to encourage you in particular to take off Tuesday the 30th, which is the day that the WTO first convenes, their first actual official day of stuff, and to participate in an international huge labor rally and march on the WTO. And I say labor, and I should correct myself right away, because it's not. It's a people's rally and march. It's going to be on the WTO. Everybody, Please help me welcome Dee Dee Rainbow has just come into the room. Hello, Dee Dee. Come on. Yeah. Just when I thought we were running out of momentum, Dee Dee Rainbow's here. Come on. It doesn't get much better than that. My name is Mike Dolan. I'm the field director of the Citizens Trade Campaign. I work for Ralph Nader Group. Thank you. Called Public Citizen. And on behalf of the Citizens Trade Campaign, before I sort of get the substantive meat of this program underway, I just want to say thank you, actually. On behalf of the Citizens Trade Campaign, the CTC, which is a national coalition of labor and environmental groups, of family farm organizations and consumer groups, faith-based groups and human rights activists all over this country, the Citizens Trade Campaign. And on behalf of the Citizens Trade Campaign, I am its field director, as I say. I want to thank some people, in particular, and some groups that have been part of this mobilization here in Seattle that has mobilized so effectively, galvanized so well to welcome the WTO and unwelcome in reality in 2 weeks' time. I want to thank, for example, Mike McCormick. Thanks, Mike. Because Mike's been here every single monthly meeting filming this stuff, these activists and scholars, the big brainiacs who know about the WTO at an excruciating level of detail beyond what I know, and have been here to educate us about the WTO. We organizers have a saying that we educate people in order to organize them. We do not organize people in order to educate them. And thanks to the work that the local, sort of independent media, people like Mike McCormick have done, we've been able to get the word out about the WTO, and it's been very effective. And it's been a crucial, essential part of the organizing. I want to thank, for example, Brian Derdowski, who's sitting over here with the King County Council. Right? Who's helped us frame the debate among local elected officials, to frame the debate in the media, to frame the debate about the basic bottom line issues that are confronted and engaged and assaulted by the WTO relating to local control and democracy and sovereignty. And that's really been a big important. Brian, thank you a lot. It's been great. I want to thank the steering committee that formed originally back in January and February and helped us focus our energies and helped us find the office downtown and to get the different constituencies involved, the microcosm, if you will, of the Citizens Trade Campaign, the labor and environment and human rights and the family farmers and the consumer advocates and so on. And that steering committee has been tremendous, and they're all out there still organizing 9 months later like crazy. And we're all getting really tired, and I hope that steering committee, like me, is planning to take a little time down when this thing is over, take a little vacation time. I want to thank the staff of the People for Fair Trade office, Jeremy and Lydia and Mike Gottfried and Bill All, and they're around here, they're out front. They've done a great job. And they'd kill me if I didn't tell you, please sign up to volunteer on the tables out front, because it's really key. There is so much work to do in these last couple of weeks. We are so ready. We are actually so much more ready than the other side is. Believe me, we are so much more ready, and we have so much momentum and so much political space that we've created in this community in anticipation of this historic confrontation. And it all goes, a lot of the credit goes to the staff. But, finally, I got to say, next to finally, I want to give you guys who have been part of this, I think you should just give yourselves a great big hand right now. And finally, by way of segue, I want to introduce the one very special person who's really helped make this mobilization happen, a person I've been working with for a few years when we were fighting the multilateral agreement on investment. And we were fighting fast track in the 105th Congress and fighting NAFTA expansion for the last couple of years. She's the coordinator of the Washington Fair Trade Campaign, and frankly, none of this would have been possible without her. Please help me welcome right now Sally Soriano, who's right over there. Sally, take it from here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I think I've been telling everybody in the past 2 weeks, or even 3 weeks, that this campaign reminds me so much of the Jackson campaign in 1988, that all the time walking in and out the door, one organizer after another, just going out and organizing whatever, just everything moving, you know, with leaflets and I was in Seattle Central Community College, and I walked through, and there's a big 2-day retreat being held down in Gig Harbor I didn't know anything about. You know, it's just everything happening everywhere you look about the WTO. So it's really a wonderful kind of thing to be happening here in Seattle, and that we can just take hold of this and really shake it and show the world what we think about it. Last April, we started a children's art exhibition on the sea turtles and dolphins that were being killed as a result of the WTO. And these are some of the drawings that have now been coming in. We've had hundreds of drawings come in from classrooms all around this country. And there's a couple that I just want to share with you. This one is from Michelle Roberts in Plymouth, West Virginia. And it says, hurrah for the Teds, save the turtles. And then somebody standing here who doesn't look too kind saying, not today. This one from Dan McMullen from Wisconsin, Plymouth, Wisconsin. It says, the turtle with not a too happy look on his face is saying, please use Teds. Down here it says, please use turtle excluder devices. It would make a turtle happy. And the last one, David Ortman, who's formerly with Friends of the Earth, his daughter, Nia Ortman, with the turtle and the dolphins saying, stop the WTO. Wait, one more. And then Eva Van Houten from Ellisville, Mississippi. She says, dear WTO, to keep your reputation, please save the sea turtles. And she follows with a poem. We swim in the ocean, we surf on the wave, we are from the dinosauric age. We are historic, remarkable, beautiful, and true. Our race is the sea turtles, save us. There's been all sorts of debates around the city. I've had a couple of high school students call me and just ask me how to talk about the WTO in their debates. There was a debate at one of the colleges that I was in just recently, and a University of Washington law professor was on the pro side of the WTO. But she was confronted by a person in the audience who said, how is it that you can be on the pro side when this WTO dispute process excludes labor, excludes environment, excludes human rights, and is so completely anti-democratic? How can you sit there on the pro side? And she told people after the debate that she had major concerns about the WTO, particularly in light of what CEO Carl Linder of Chiquita was able to do in relationship to paying off Clinton to have access. And then on the other hand, we had a glorious example of someone who didn't and still doesn't get it in the person of Lynn Turk, who is a negotiator for APEC and who has been in several debates against us. That's APEC, Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation, the NAFTA for the Pacific. He was on the pro side at the Seattle Teachers Union debate and said regarding the Caribbean banana decision that these farmers shouldn't even be growing bananas, that they should be growing sugarcane. He went on to say that sugarcane is more marketable and they could get a higher price for the crop. So now we have cultures and economies, according to Lynn Turk. These types of people are obviously servants of the corporations. They don't even blink at the idea of telling everyone in the world how they should farm or not farm, or who should work in sweatshops, rather than stay on the land and be feeding their families and their local communities with what they produced. People don't eat sugar cane. They do eat corn and they do eat bananas. They don't eat Zenith televisions. A wonderful thing happened this last week when Patty Goldman took a case, and according to Judge Barbara Rothstein now, the USTR must name at least one Enviro rep to each of the panels that advise her on wood and paper product negotiations at the WTO, limiting the membership on the advisory council, because the WTO limits the membership on the advisory committees to timber and paper industry officials, and that violated the Advisory Council Act. So that was a wonderful decision. Mike Gottfried, who works down in the office and is down there working tonight, matching up all the housing that is coming in, wanted me to remind everybody, he said, to let you know that we're just running a little bit short in terms of houses, like about 20 places. So if people could sign up on the sheets out there and get the housing in, we will be able to fill all the housing requests that are coming in. And I also wanted to second the thanks to Mike McCormick, who has been doing all the videotaping, as Mike said. On the forum out there, I don't know if you saw it, but there's a video. We now have a video series to go with the two great books, Lori Wallach's book and Stephen Schreibman's book. So the movies to go with the books. There's the 5-year record of the WTO, fair trade versus free trade, fair trade talks, and the Massachusetts Burma law threatened by the WTO. Each of those videos out there are $5, and they're all around the Seattle Public Schools being used right now in classes. So thank you, Mike. It gives me great pleasure and a great honor to present our first speaker tonight, Velma Valoria. I worked with, or got to know Velma in 1988 in the Rainbow Coalition down in Atlanta, when we were all saying it's time to tax the rich. Velma was on the floor of the convention holding up, we all did hand-painted signs down there, and we have pictures of Velma holding up those signs. Velma came right back and went to the state legislature because of that momentum to be working with the people. Velma is a community and labor organizer and was part of the Anti-Marcos campaign. Right now, she's co-chair of the Trade and Economic Development Committee. Please welcome Velma Valoria.
This is a great turnout. Thank you for having me here. I'm really honored. When I was asked to speak, Sally said that I could just go over the speech that I made at the WTO and the environment, and so I shall. And for those of you who have heard it, please bear with me. So, here we go. Good evening, everyone. It is indeed an honor for me to come before you and be part of a distinguished panel on such an important issue. I want to acknowledge the trust and confidence placed upon me, this time by Sally Soriano and Mike Dolan, the People for Fair Trade and Citizens Trade Campaign, and other organizers of this event. I thank you for the opportunity to participate. When I first heard the World Trade Organization was coming to town, I was cautiously excited. Excited because as a member of the Agriculture and International Trade Committee of the National Conference of State Legislatures, I recognize the benefits international trade in creating jobs, raising living standards, and stimulating economic growth in the United States. I also know that 1/3 of the U.S. agricultural production that has been exported in recent years has been helped by the World Trade Organization rules. As co-chair of our state's Economic Development, Housing, and Trade Committee, I understand that our state is a major hub for products sent around the country and to Canada. And yes, 1 out of every 4 jobs is related to trade. As someone deeply interested in cultivating an understanding amongst peoples of different cultures, I have organized, led, and participated in trade missions to the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, and Korea. These missions especially provide small businesses ties to prospective business partners and give honor to the cultures of the people in these different countries. With the World Trade Organization in Seattle, 5,000 delegates from around the world will spend their money, add to our economy, and get a glimpse of what we proudly call the American culture, specifically the American Pacific Northwest culture. Surely we will reap the benefits for years to come. But I am cautious because in the few years that the WTO has been established, many concerns regarding liberalizing trade agreements has been raised. In fact, it appears that large transnational traders snare most of the benefits. Perhaps this is not surprising when we consider that of the world's 100 economies, 51 are national corporations and 49 are independent countries. These are the largest economies. As they say, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know which way the chips will fall. As well, the WTO has been rightly criticized for its lack of transparency, accessibility, and accountability. With over 130 member nations and so much at stake around the world, it seems wrong-headed to continue with the closed meetings and non-public dispute resolution process. In our discussions at the National Conference of State Legislature this past summer, we noted that recent international trade patterns have resulted in significant burdens on the people of the United States, its commerce, and environment. We are concerned about the impact these regulations were having on our national and state labor standards, our health and safety standards, and our environment. In addition, we looked at the issues of product dumping of wheat, lamb, apples, and diverted steel, illegal subsidies, and predatory pricing, and other unfair trade practices. But most significant of all was the effect these trade regulations were having on our deeply held values as Americans and the viability of our federalism and democratic form of government. While the federal government negotiates trade agreements and represents the United States in dispute settlement proceedings, the reach of the agreements is not limited to federal law. Once the United States enters into a trade agreement, it has bound all 50 states and all of its local governments and subjected their laws to trade challenges. In reflecting on our environment and the problem with reducing air pollution, I think about the WTO ruling determining the U.S. Clean Air Act's reformulated gasoline requirements were in violation of the WTO rules and agreements. That incident has clearly put us on notice that trade agreements are working well in the interest of corporate profits, but not as well in the service of sustainable environment. In particular, it is important for people in my district for close to over 300,000 vehicles pass through it daily. Add to that the toxic emissions and hazardous waste. Many of my constituents from low-income communities and people of color suffer from what we call environmental injustice. Just as painful to think about is the challenge of the WTO to the Massachusetts human rights law prohibiting the state from doing business with corporations that do business with Myanmar. This decision has placed the ability of states to take a stand against social and economic injustice through divestment-type laws in jeopardy. Many say that Nelson Mandela would still be in prison if the WTO had been in existence at the same time nations were putting real pressure on South Africa to abandon apartheid. Finally, of interest to so many of us in the Puget Sound area is the current lawsuit by Intertanko against Washington State, which challenges our rights to put in place safeguards and good practices for oil pollution prevention in this state. The Supreme Court now has the matter under review. There is real danger, real concern that this international oil shippers consortium could simply get a country to file a complaint against the U.S. for uneven and unfair trade and transport restrictions and make the matter a dispute before the WTO. What's next? Will the landmark salmon restoration plan that stakeholders, legislators, both Democrats and Republicans, as well as our constituents worked on this past legislative session, be considered a non-tariff trade barrier? Will it be subject to the WTO dispute resolution process? What about future proposal for state legislation which may deal assertively with invasive species control at ports, with measures beyond what the federal government has been willing to do? Concerned and feeling skepticism, the NCSL drafted a resolution to the U.S. Trade Representative stating our support for efforts to increase the transparency, accessibility, and accountability of the WTO. This group of legislators from over 50 states, from our 50 states, also support broadening participation in the WTO and addressing environmental and labor matters. And I quote here, "The NCSL will not support trade or investment agreements that do not include reservations that limit the unnecessary preemption of state law and preserve the authority of state legislators. Implementing legislation for trade and investment agreements must also be crafted to include protections for our constitutional system of federalism. Amendments must be made to trade and investment agreements to grandfather existing state laws that might otherwise be subject to challenge. Particularly, care must be exercised to ensure that state laws and revenue systems are not subject to unjustified challenge under international agreements, and they generally should be carved out of the agreements." In short, as a state legislator and member of the NCSL, I am asking the WTO and our trade ministers to be more cautious and thoughtful about these trade agreements, and that issues of transparency, accountability, and accessibility be addressed. Further, I ask that our nation's executive branch and trade representative work to ensure solutions to our trade problems, to ensure that solutions to our trade problems be fair, just, and credible, and they not jeopardize our shared environment nor our democratic form of government. Finally, I ask the WTO to continue to listen and be more open to suggestions from leaders in each country, including those in non-governmental organizations. In order for any real profit to be made, you must remember, you will need us. And for those of us in the United States, we are, after all, members of a group our Constitution calls We the People. I ask each of you today to contact your legislators to support efforts by select legislators to bring this to the agenda of both the House of Representatives and the Senate in the state of Washington and our Governor, Gary Locke. Thank you.
Thanks, Velma. We've had members of the City Council weigh in as fair traders and members of the King County Council weigh in as fair traders, and now we have the state legislature weighing in as fair traders. Our next speaker is Jolene Unsold. When I was working with Public Citizen in 1991, 92, 93, I would call her office, and that office would be 6, 7, 8, 9 months ahead of everybody else on Capitol Hill, understanding what the issues were with trade, with the environment, and educating me about what I was doing and how to talk to other people from the congressional delegation. Jolene went to Congress in 1989 to 1995. I wish. She was in the state legislature for 4 years. Please welcome Jolene.
So you started in January. I don't want Mike to hear this, but he lied to you. He said that in 2 weeks was going to be the culmination of your effort. And then you were going to have a vacation. Well, a couple of days maybe. A couple of days maybe, but this is a people-to-people campaign to organize around the world. The so-called free trade issues go back a long ways for me. I can't remember when I didn't feel that free trade should mean that workers in any country were free to buy products from any other country. And in fact, the 1984 Trade and Tariff Act prohibited extending trade preferences to countries that refused to honor internationally respected worker rights, including the right to organize, bargain, minimum age, minimum wages, hours of work, and occupational safety and health. We had that in '84. But the 1980s, starting with Reagan, saw a progressive weakening of labor's ability to hold the line on gains hard won in this country during the previous 2 generations. And now, to many of us, world trade has come to mean a greater concern for increased profits rather than working conditions, environmental damage, or human rights. The first summer I was in Congress, 1989, NIMPS and the Coast Guard had a sting operation on Taiwanese involved in illegal capture and sale of salmon and steelhead. Under the guise of fishing for squid, they were using their 20, 30-mile, large-scale monofilament nylon nets to scoop up pirated salmon, an estimated 10,000 metric tons in '87. I began to see the trade agreements could enforce environmental safeguards and sustainable use of resources. In '91, I opposed fast track. We were sending, you could look in this state and see what was happening. We were sending raw logs overseas rather than processed wood because our administration didn't negotiate tough enough. 60% of the shellfish consumed in this country was imported. Yet foreign products were held to much less scrutiny than domestic products. We simply couldn't trust the administration to negotiate tough. Now that was the Bush administration. When Clinton was elected and NAFTA was being lobbied, the new administration said that Bush had agreed to too much, but that the new president would be tougher with subsequent negotiations. With NAFTA, I saw a perfect place to demonstrate the need to use trade restrictions for a positive purpose, to protect endangered sea turtles. By law, our shrimp fishers had to use turtle extruder devices. Why shouldn't Mexico protect the turtles if they were going to sell us shrimp? I got nowhere with the administration. It would be a violation of free trade if the practice that I was questioning didn't change the quality of the product. Now, the type of net it's caught in doesn't change the quality of the shrimp. It may change the quality of life for the turtle, but that was made irrelevant. Trade representatives, cabinet secretaries, the vice president, they all came to my office. When I explained about the turtles and quality of product, they all said I was wrong. To the credit of Gore's staff and Gore, that was the one acknowledgement that I was right after they went back and reread the language. But nothing was changed. I started stirring up international concerns about GATT. I was a member of GLOBE, an international organization of parliamentarians from the Northern Hemisphere, and in a year and a half time got them to write some first-class letters that everyone signed, all the representative countries, to the head of state and the environmental official in the European community, Japan, Russia, the US. I even got a hefty number of members of Congress to join me in writing Clinton about the environmental issues. We lost it all. The way the government system should work is that we have elected officials whose public work is made a public record for all the public to see, and they're accountable to us through the elections. Hence, access to public information and records are essential. It is unfortunately true that the way the WTO works, we have a new international government acting behind closed doors without accountability to the people on whose behalf they supposedly serve. Excuse me. Who are these powerful figures? Almost exclusively, the players around the table behind that closed door are from the industries affected, and they serve without conflict of interest standards. Many are among the biggest U.S. polluters. To whom do they owe their allegiance? They are big national and international corporations, and they are driven by their myopic quest for profit. Now, there's nothing wrong with profit, but its value must be in relation to that from which the profit is derived. When we examine the values lost in the process. An American corporation, for example, shut down in '91 for violating Mexico's water pollution law, forced to put in a pre-treatment system that had been required 19 years earlier in the United States. Now, what kind of a WTO do you think that kind of corporation wants? They don't want one that's going to enforce environmental standards. Are they accountable to us, the people? I remember when Boeing argued that we should grant most favored nation to China so Boeing could get in that country and exert influence on human rights from inside. I haven't heard anything since from them about their human rights efforts. Are they accountable to us, the people? The tobacco industry, on whose behalf our trade rep advised Taiwan that we would challenge Taiwan's desire to limit sales to children. Are they accountable to us, the people? After 200,000 workers and villagers were poisoned when gas leaked from the Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal, India, and then they tried to challenge the lawsuit brought on behalf of those villagers, were they accountable to us, the people? Come on, let's hear you. There we go. The corporate voice that persuaded the U.S. to cast the only no vote as the World Health Organization sought to promote breastfeeding of babies by discouraging the advertising of infant formula. Do you want them in charge? No! The corporations who first try to silence and then discredit their workers, who complain about fumes or chemicals making them sick. Do we want them in charge? No! No, we don't. We don't want that sort of decision makers behind those closed doors. But neither does fair trade mean isolating ourselves and our workers with our superior walls surrounding the United States. What then does fair trade mean? It means openness, accountability, respect for the environment and the sustainability of our planet, respect for all peoples of the earth. And that brings us to the hardest part. Our own balancing act. I learned the sad and painful truth that President Clinton, regardless of the words of reassurance, would disappoint and even anger me on some of his trade and WTO attitudes. I'm a Democrat, but I know that if the Democrats are the next administration, I will find many bitter truths in what is done on our issues. Now, against that truth, and with our vision of fair trade, we must and will fight like hell here in Seattle to make changes in the WTO. But here's the rub. Here's another truth we must not forget. The 2000 presidential election will make the most crucial determinations on the Supreme Court in either the 20th or the 21st centuries. And I submit it is a further truth that our cause will be diminished if the current U.S. Senate continues to determine who serves. And one more fact. Our cause will be better reflected in a Supreme Court that honors human rights, that honors the role of the federal government to protect environment and health and workers' rights and human rights. It becomes self-evident that we must use our new understanding, our new energy, our new determination given to us here to begin to educate and organize the people of the world. That will be the only way we get an administration, any administration, to fully listen to the heartbeat of our earth. Together, we will overcome. Together, we will overcome. Together, we will overcome.
Wow, that was great. We have a lot of work still that we want to get to and hear from you about what you're planning for the ministerial meeting, but, you know, I just feel like we ought to kick back for a minute. I don't know about you, I'm kind of feeling like a song right about now. The Seattle Labor Chorus!
I need to get so I can see. I'm shorter, so I need to kind of.
To continue that, this is a song that I put together for get some stuff on WTO, and it's kind of been a working process with the chorus, rearranging it and adding stuff to it. So I hope you like it.
Sisters and brothers, take a good look around. The global corporate agenda is coming to town. It is big, it is mean, it has one point of view. It's born of greed and it's not good for me or for you. So we're saying no, no to WTO. We're saying no, no, no to WTO. It's gotta go, go to WTO. So we're saying no. You've got to play by their rules to be part of their game. A law that hampers free trade. They say it's a law that lets go. What's good for profits, not people, is all that they know. So we're saying no, no to WTO. We're saying no, no, no to WTO. It's gotta go, go. It's WTO. So we're saying no, no to WTO. What is that to be? Will pollution get worse so that trade can be free? Will consumers be safe? Will labor standards decline? In Seattle today we are drawing the line. We're saying no, no to WTO. We're saying no, no, no to WTO. It's gotta go, go. It's WTO. So we're saying no, no to WTO. Send a message that will echo in every land. We're the ones who do the work. Let our voices be heard. And if we all stay together, we can have the last word. So tell them no, no to WTO. We're saying no, no, no to WTO. It's gotta go, go. It's WTO. So we're saying no, no to WTO.
Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna keep on walking proudly. Keep
International Labor Corps is fantastic. And you know, a lot of people don't know this, but you know that first song, that No to WTO? Lou wrote that song. Come on. Come on. Yeah. All right. Now, gotta hear from some of you now, because there's a lot of stuff going on, and we need everybody to know what everybody else is doing. This is the most important part of any rally or meeting, really. This is the moment of dispatch. Yeah. Yeah, when we all leave with something to do, okay? For example, y'all signed in when you came in, right? At the tables, and then you came in to sign in, and that always happens. And as you leave, if you have not done so already, you will fill out a volunteer form describing your availability, the stuff you like to do. Not for the next 2 weeks, and especially during the week of the ministerial after Thanksgiving, and the work that has to be done and your availability. Oh, and one of the things, you know, for example, that you can fill out, that you can sign, that you can help with, Sally mentioned it a few minutes ago, is the homestay stuff. You know, 20,000 of my closest friends are coming to see that. At the end of the month. It's great. We've found places for most of them to stay. Like Jim Hightower from Austin, Texas. I got a place to stay. Ralph Nader is staying, found him a hotel room, kind of cheap, a little small thing that he found. For Ralph's going to be here. We got a place for him. Michael Moore, who's coming. Not there, Michael Moore. Our Michael Moore. To assume his rightful place as the head of the highest legislative and judicial body in the world. Yeah, Michael Moore's coming. There's a place for him to stay. I'm a little worried about some of the other activists from the Minnesota Fair Trade Campaign and the Texas and the Florida and the New York Fair Trade Campaigns. All the Sally Sorianos from all over the country are coming here, and all of their friends are coming here. And I know that your floor space is all taken. I know mine is. I'm wondering about yours. Yeah, I mean, we're very, very close to finding a place for everybody. And if you have a couch or a futon, a guest room, or a place where a tent can be pitched, hopefully on some higher ground in your backyard, please consider doing this. This is really an important function, and we are really close. We've been working very hard in our office to hook people up. You know, people are allergic to cats. We don't put them to people with cats, right? And nobody smokes anymore, so that's not a problem. Well, yeah, present company excluded. Sure, not name names here. All right, so do that, please. Fill out the forms. Now I want you all to know about some of the things that are happening during the week of the ministerial. And I'm going to ask a couple of people who I know are here to describe what they're organizing and to describe specifically how you can plug in. All right? I'll give you an example. Let's always talk about the sea turtles, right? There's a lot of talk about that. And many of you may have heard these same rumors I've heard about the sea turtles coming to Seattle. Yeah. A whole lot of them, all right? Well, there's a guy here who knows about that. Ben White, are you here anywhere? Here's Ben. Ben, stand up here. So Ben, what's all this I hear about sea turtles? Come here and tell me. What is it? And how maybe some of these people who are turtle-esque can get involved. Ben White with the American Welfare Institute. You got 3 minutes.
Easy.
Okay.
Hey, brothers and sisters, welcome to the revolution. How about this, huh? I want to give my sincere thanks to the fat cats who got us into this. What were they thinking anyway, huh? I think they've overreached a wee bit. You know, they've been so successful for years in splitting us into pieces, you know, jobs versus environment. Now we're all together, huh? What are they going to do now? One of the things that's come about in the last 20 years or so is the idea that we can exert pressure on trade to make it kinder, so it does not create intentional suffering. One of the things that we've been able to do is laws against the killing of dolphins for tuna fish. After 7 million died, we figure it's probably a pretty good idea to stop that. WTO says, no, you can't do it. We own you. You have to change that law. Very successful law, brought in 1991, thrown out by GATT, and then, which is now part of WTO. And that law was knocked down. Then we have a law that protected sea turtles. It said that if you're going to import your shrimp in this country, you have to do what our shrimp fishermen do and use the turtle excluder device. It's cheap, it works, why not? And that was going after the United States government resisted it for a long time. We won in court to force them, and now we were sued under WTO. WTO ruled an interesting ruling that said, yes, this thing works, yes, it's a good law, and no, you can't use it. You know, one of the things that human rights, animal protection, all these things bear in common is local control, that we have a right to speak up, to protect life the way we want to. They say, no, we can't do that. Also depends on transparency. Yes, we will have a few turtles here. We will have like... Hey, I got 3 minutes. You may have seen some of these cropping up on sidewalks around town. There are a few hundred of them, about sort of just a little tease. But we've been busy with our hands over the last couple months, and we've made 240 sea turtle costumes.
Wow, that's a lot of sea turtle costumes.
So what we need are people who are interested in channeling turtleness for about 4 days and filling the streets of Seattle with swarms of turtles. Now, we have a couple other things. Every third turtle will be carrying the Don't Tread on Me flag, you know, the early Gadsden American flag with a serpent, except it'll say Don't Trade on Me. And we also have some other fun stuff we're going to be spreading around town a little bit. We have about 50,000 miles of that stuff that we're going to spread around. Look, our first gathering, we're meeting at 10 o'clock at the First United Methodist Church. If you want to be a turtle, write down when you go that you want to be a turtle and meet us there at 10 to take on your uniform. And you have to be promised to be peaceful boys and girls or you get de-turtled. But other than that, you're welcome to come on. And basically, this is our agenda. We have a rally. We're going to march from there at noon to an Enviro and Animal rally. They're going to close off 8th Avenue, right where it dead ends, right on Pike, right in front of the convention center. We're going to fill the place up with turtles and dolphins and butterflies and human beings too. And we're going there that day because the WTO is having a meeting to feel our pain and throw us some crumbs that we can fight over and to see if we want a seat at their table. And what we're saying is we don't want a seat at your bloody table. You have to mind your matters, see if you get a seat at our table, remember? We want to tell them that there's a couple of basic, real basic laws. One of nature, and it is life without. And the other one of the human heart is the desire for freedom and justice and self-determination will never die. It will always live and grow bigger, and they're going to find out about that in Seattle. One last thing. Wendell Berry says the purpose of true protest that succeeds is more modest than that of changing everyone's mind. It's to hold on to that in our hearts that dies through acquiescence. So each of us, for our own reason, to stand up for what we believe in, are coming and saying, it stops here. There's going to be 2 histories of WTO written, until Seattle and after Seattle. Thank you.
All right. You've probably heard about the big rally, big march on Tuesday, November the 30th, and longest civil society march. And it's going to start over in the Seattle Center. And really, I got to tell you, the lead organization that's helped put this thing together, this civil society People's March, is the King County Labor Council, the AFL-CIO. All the details. Rich Feldman with the Worker Center. Make sure you're up on it. Rich Feldman. All right.
This is,
3 minutes.
this thing is,
Each? No.
yeah, each.
One
We got
minute each.
double,
We'll be out of here,
double.
all right?
November 30th, 10 o'clock. Where are we going to be? Seattle Center, Memorial Stadium. We're on our way to have the largest, most massive protest about international trade that has ever happened in the United States of America. We have hundreds of buses coming from Spokane, Yakima, Vancouver, Canada, Portland, Oregon, from all over this country that are descending upon the city in a clockwork fashion.
Tell them about the planes, Rich. Tell them about the train.
We got planes coming in. We've got a train from Portland, filled to the brim. People are going to be hanging off the side of it. And we're going to have some Seattleites there, right? We're going to assemble at, where are we going to assemble at? Memorial Stadium. And we're going to march down 4th Avenue. And we're going to fill 4th Avenue. We are going to fill 4th Avenue from sidewalk